Right then, hello there, and a very warm welcome to you. So delighted you've decided to join me today. Before we dive headfirst into our story, do me a quick favor. If you're enjoying this, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It truly makes a difference. And just out of pure curiosity, where in the world are you tuning in from right now, and what time is it for you? Now let's cast our minds way back to the heart of the Victorian era. The year, if you're wondering, is 1872. You're engulfed by an air that's perpetually thick with the acrid tang of coal smoke and the damp, earthy smell of neglect, a heavy, unshakable presence in this vast, sprawling and frankly rather grim industrial city. You're suddenly harshly jolted from a shallow, restless sleep by a persistent, almost maddeningly rhythmic rattle at the windowpane. It's a faint sound, yes, but its insistence is a tremor that vibrates right through the thin, brittle glass and into your bones. A sharp, metallic insistence, like a tiny, frantic tapping, determinedly slicing through the profound, heavy silence of the pre-dawn hour. You're lying on a straw mattress, its meager stuffing lumpy and unyielding beneath your aching back. The scratchy, threadbare woolen blanket pulled up to your chin does very little to shield you from the biting, relentless chill that ceaselessly seeps through the myriad cracks in the plaster wall. Every single muscle in your body aches with a familiar, dull throb, a brutal legacy from yesterday's arduous toil, and the cold, unforgiving air bites sharply at your exposed skin as you instinctively, futilely, try to pull the rough fabric higher still. Your eyes, still heavy with the residue of unfulfilled rest, flutter open, struggling to pierce the oppressive, inky darkness that suffocates the cramped room. Outside, the distant gas street lamps, if indeed any are lit this early, offer absolutely no comfort, no welcoming glow to guide you. Only the faintest, most timid sliver of grey light reluctantly begins to hint at the coming morning, an almost imperceptible struggle to push back the encroaching blackness. You strain your ears, listening intently, trying to hear past the frantic thump of your own heart hammering against your ribs. The rattling continues, a nervous, uneven rhythm, undeniably too deliberate, too purposeful to be merely the caprice of the wind. It's not a playful tree branch. This is something smaller, infinitely more urgent, demanding your immediate, fearful attention. You cautiously, slowly shift your weight, the brittle, dry straw beneath you rustling with a soft, unnerving crackle. You cast a quick, apprehensive glance towards the small, saggy cot on the other side of the tiny, cramped room, where your younger sister lies curled in a tight, protective ball, lost to the deep, innocent, dreamless sleep you so desperately envy. Her small, fragile, ragged form barely makes an impression on the worn, faded fabric of her own blanket. You wish, with a pang of despair, that you could share her fleeting peace, but the insistent, unnerving sound simply won't release you. It's a pull, a silent, demanding call from the desolate outside, something that absolutely demands your terrified attention. The window itself, a small, begrimed square set high in the peeling wall, now seems to loom ominously in your vision. You can almost feel it drawing you in. You vividly imagine a fleeting shadow, a watchful presence, just beyond the streaked, translucent glass, its form blurred and distorted by the accumulated grime and dampness of the city's endless dirt. A cold, hard knot tightens painfully in your stomach, a chilling premonition. It's far too early for the deafening factory bell to summon you, far too early for anything remotely good to be stirring. This persistent rattle, this urgent, unsettling demand, feels like the first cruel, discordant note of another impossibly long, impossibly difficult day. The persistent rattle at the windowpane, that sharp, almost frantic tapping, doesn't merely persist. It seems to intensify now, quickening its pace, becoming less a suggestion and more an undeniable command. Each tiny metallic clink against the glass feels like a pinprick, a harsh, cold reminder that the fleeting illusion of warmth and safety is well and truly shattered. You can practically feel the gaze from the other side of that grimy pane, a silent, demanding pressure that pins you to your wretched mattress. There's no escaping it, you realize, no burying your head deeper under the threadbare blanket, no wishing it away. This sound, this insistent call, isn't going to cease until you respond, until you acknowledge its cruel dominion over your dawn. With a heavy, audible sigh that fogs in the biting air, you slowly, reluctantly push back the scratchy woolen cover. The instant assault of the room's frigid chill is like a physical blow, a harsh slap across your exposed skin, raising goosebumps that prickle from your neck right down to your toes. You shiver, a deep, involuntary tremor that racks your entire frame, and the effort of it sends a fresh wave of aches through your weary muscles. This, is the daily tax, the immediate cost of simply existing in this unforgiving world. The bone-deep cold, the hunger pangs already gnawing a hollow in your stomach, the exhaustion that never truly leaves you. This shiver isn't just a reaction to the temperature. It's the feeling of your own fragility, a constant, nagging awareness of how little separates you from the street's unforgiving embrace. Your bare feet tentatively touch the rough, splintered wooden floorboards. The shock of the cold wood is immediate and searing, making you draw your breath in sharply, every nerve ending screaming in protest. It's a feeling you know intimately, a daily ritual of discomfort that heralds the start of another grueling day. You rise slowly, your joints stiff, creaking with a protest that feels older than your years. You glance again at your sister, still lost in her peaceful slumber, a faint, innocent breath misting in the air above her. A flicker of something like protectiveness or perhaps a desperate hope for her stirs in your chest. You want to shield her from the waking world for as long as possible, to preserve that fragile, fleeting peace, knowing full well that soon enough, the same harsh reality will undoubtedly claim her too. You pull on your rough, coarse trousers and a threadbare shirt, the fabric offering little comfort, feeling like a second skin of cold. The clothes are stiff, damp with the permeating chill of the room, and the buttons are a struggle for your numbing fingers. Each movement is a conscious effort, a battle against the overwhelming inertia of weariness and cold. You move towards the window, each step a testament to sheer, grim determination. The outside world is still shrouded in a murky gloom, but you can feel its oppressive weight, hear the faint, muffled murmurs of the waking city, a distant cart, a barking dog, the inexorable grinding of the mills stirring to life. The rattle, you realize, has stopped. It achieved its purpose, it woke you, it always does. You simply exist, a small, cold point within a vast, indifferent machine that demands nothing less than your complete, unwavering, painful submission. And every shiver, every ache, is just another coin paid for the privilege of another breath. The air outside, even with the faint promise of a reluctant dawn, already felt like a shroud, thick, gritty, and tasting faintly of ash and damp earth. But as you turn the corner onto cobbled streets slick with perpetual grime, a new, far more potent assault begins. It's the smell of hot oil, acrid steam, and the cloying sweetness of raw cotton lint, all mingling into a single, suffocating perfume that clamps down on your lungs. And then, the sound. Oh, the sound. It starts as a distant rumble, a low, guttural growl that vibrates through the soles of your worn-out boots. With every heavy, trudging step you take, it grows, swelling into an overwhelming, deafening roar. This isn't just noise. It's a living, breathing entity, a monstrous symphony of industry. Then you see it, looming against the bruised sky, the mill, a colossal, dark hulk of brick and soot-stained windows stretching upwards like a titan in a perpetual nightmare. Its sheer scale is enough to make you feel utterly insignificant, a tiny, fleeting shadow against its vast, unyielding face. The main gate, a gaping maw of wrought iron, stands open, seemingly waiting to swallow the stream of stooped, silent figures already shuffling through. You join them, becoming just another anonymous outline swallowed by the ceaseless hunger of the place. The metallic tang of rust and damp stone hits you first as you pass under the archway, then the reverberating tremor of the colossal machinery underfoot, a continuous, unsettling pulse that shakes your very bones. Inside, the light is a perpetual twilight, barely cutting through the dust-laden air that hangs heavy and oppressive, a grey, shimmering veil. The heat, generated by countless engines and the friction of frantic production, immediately embraces you, a suffocating, greasy hug that feels somehow worse than the piercing cold outside. You're pushed along by the throng, a silent river of weary souls flowing deeper into the labyrinthine interior. The sound now is absolute, a relentless, all-consuming clamour of clanking, hissing, and the violent, rhythmic crash of power looms. It assaults every sense, making speech impossible, thought difficult, reducing everything to raw, primal sensation. And then you see it properly, the great iron mouth. It's a massive, insatiable machine, a beast of gleaming metal and churning gears taller than 3 men. Its vast, cavernous opening, stained dark with oil and residue, swallows bundles of raw, unprocessed fibers whole, chewing them up with terrifying efficiency. You watch as a stream of material, like a river of cotton, is pulled inexorably into its depths, vanishing with a hungry gulp. The machine groans, whirs, and grinds, a relentless metallic heartbeat devouring everything placed before it. You feel its immense power, its sheer, terrifying indifference. It's not just the fibers it consumes, you realize. It consumes the light, the air, the sound, and you suspect it consumes a little piece of you too, every single day. A small, silent offering to the relentless god of the mill, another sacrifice to keep the gears turning. Your own small life, just another thread pulled into the great, iron, unfeeling maw. The roar, you realize, isn't just sound, it's a physical force, a tangible weight pressing down on you from all sides. It vibrates through the very floorboards beneath your feet, shudders up your legs, and settles deep in your chest, rattling your ribs. It's a ceaseless, thundering symphony of iron on iron, of leather belts whipping, of steam hissing like 1,000 angry serpents, all contained within this cavernous, dust-choked space. Every single breath you take tastes metallic, gritty with the fine, insidious cotton dust that coats everything, settling even on your eyelashes. Your throat feels perpetually dry, scratchy, and the constant din makes your head ache, a dull, persistent throb behind your eyes that never truly recedes. You're standing by a spinning frame, a monstrous contraption of bobbins and whirring spindles that stretches almost the entire length of the room. Your job, the same one you perform for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, is simple, repetitive, and utterly unforgiving. To mend the broken threads, your fingers, small and nimble, are your most valuable and most vulnerable tools. They dart in and out of the churning machinery, a blur of motion, picking up the snapped ends of cotton, tying a quick, precise knot, and guiding the fragile new connection back into the hungry maw of the frame. The air around you pulses with the machinery's breath, hot and greasy. The constant, dizzying motion of the spindles makes your eyes water, blurring your vision until the world becomes a hazy, deafening kaleidoscope of beige threads and grey metal. You don't look up, can't afford to. Even a momentary lapse, a fraction of a second of inattention, could mean disaster. You've seen it happen. A careless hand too close, a piece of clothing snagged, and the machine, uncaring, unfeeling, would simply continue its relentless work, pulling, tearing, consuming. The foreman, a hulking figure whose presence you feel more than see, looms occasionally in your peripheral vision, his heavy boots thudding faintly even through the all-encompassing roar. You don't need to see his face to know his expression, a permanent scowl, a watchful, unforgiving gaze that ensures no slackening, no hesitation. His heavy hand on your shoulder, a rare, startling contact, is a sharp, wordless reminder of the pace required. Your movements become automatic, a trance-like dance with the steel beast. Your body works independently of your mind, a series of learned reflexes, quick and efficient. You're no longer thinking. You're merely responding, reacting to the broken thread, the empty bobbin. The sound strips away everything else, thought, emotion, even the concept of time. It just is. You are simply a part of the machine, a living, breathing cog, turning endlessly, relentlessly. And in this deafening, suffocating chaos, where the roar consumes everything, you cling to the last vestiges of yourself, a quiet defiance in the relentless churn, a small, silent refusal to be entirely swallowed. The air around you isn't just dusty, it's a suffocating shroud of fine, insidious cotton particles, so dense you can practically taste it on your tongue. It prickles at your nose, tickles the back of your throat, and coats the inside of your lungs with a persistent, cloying film. The perpetual din of the machinery, that relentless, deafening roar, now feels less like sound and more like a constant, aggressive vibration coursing through your entire body. It rattles your teeth, buzzes in your ears, and makes your head ache with a dull, insistent throb that never truly goes away. Your movements are fluid, practiced, but every muscle in your back and neck screams in protest, a chorus of protest against the unnatural contortions you're forced into. Because now you're a scavenger. It's the worst of the worst jobs, the one that makes your stomach clench with cold dread every time you're assigned it. You're on your hands and knees crawling beneath the behemoth machines, the spinning frames, the carding engines, where the air is even thicker, hotter, and infused with the metallic tang of oil and lint. The floor is a treacherous landscape of greasy puddles, discarded threads, and sharp, hidden shards of metal. Your rough, flimsy clothes snag on projections, and the perpetual dampness of the concrete soaks through the thin fabric, chilling you to the bone even amidst the crushing heat of the mill. Your mission, your constant, harrowing focus, is to retrieve the dropped cotton, the precious, fluffy fibers that escape the hungry mouths of the machines. Every stray wisp is a loss to the mill, a mark against the day's production, and you are there to reclaim every last, errant strand. You push yourself forward, your small body contorted into impossible angles, squeezing into the narrow, terrifying gaps between the churning gears and the whirring, lethal belts. The sheer proximity to the machinery is terrifying. You can feel the immense power humming just inches from your face, hear the angry hiss of steam escaping hot pipes and the grinding of teeth like cogs. A wrong move, a clumsy reach, and you know with chilling certainty that the machine would simply draw you in, consuming you without a moment's hesitation. The light down here is almost non-existent, a suffocating gloom broken only by faint, scattered shafts filtering through the machinery, creating eerie, shifting patterns of dust motes dancing in the oppressive air. You push a small wooden tray before you, gathering the cotton, your fingers numb and sore from constant contact with the rough fibers and the cold, greasy floor. You catch a glimpse of another scavenger, a boy even smaller than you, his face streaked with grime, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and grim determination, his breath coming in ragged gasps. A silent acknowledgement passes between you, a shared understanding of this hellish, claustrophobic existence. You are both just cogs, but here in the suffocating belly of the beast, you're the most vulnerable, the most easily crushed. Your childhood, your very being slowly, inexorably, being scavenged away piece by painful piece. The hot, greasy breath of the machine presses down on you, a suffocating weight in the already stifling air. You're still on your hands and knees, tucked precariously beneath the churning belly of the spinning frame, and the metallic clangor above is a relentless hammering inside your skull. The floor, cold and slick with oil, seeps through your thin, patched trousers, a constant chilling reminder of the grim reality of your surroundings. Each movement is a calculated risk, a slow, deliberate crawl through a narrow gauntlet of whirring belts and grinding gears. You can feel the powerful vibration through your palms as they push against the grimy, lint-covered floor, a constant tremor that unnervingly suggests the monstrous power just inches from your face. Your eyes, stinging from the dust and the strain of peering into the gloom, fix on a tiny, almost ethereal wisp of cotton. It's caught tantalizingly just beyond the reach of a rapidly spinning spindle, dancing on the very edge of the mechanism, ready to be lost forever into the oil-stained depths. This isn't just a stray fiber, it's a minuscule fraction of the day's production, a tangible measure of your worth, of your desperate struggle to meet the relentless demands. The foreman's sharp, watchful eyes are everywhere, even if you can't see them, and every lost strand is a potential scolding, a docked penny. You slowly extend your arm, your fingers, raw and scraped, stretching towards the elusive fiber. The air here is thick with the smell of hot metal and singed cotton, a cloying, sickening sweetness that clings to your nostrils. Your breath hitches in your throat as a large, serrated gear whirs ominously, just above your knuckles, its teeth a blur of deadly motion. You feel the faint breeze it creates, the suction that threatens to pull you closer, to draw your hand into its merciless grip. It's a razor's edge, a constant, terrifying dance between retrieving the valuable waste and preserving your own fragile flesh. Every instinct screams at you to pull back, to recoil from the mechanical maw, but you don't, you can't. The desperate need, the silent, terrifying imperative pushes you on. Your fingertip brushes against the soft, feathery cotton, a fleeting, almost weightless contact. With a surge of grim relief, you manage to snag it, to pull the tiny, precious wisp safely onto your tray. You breathe out slowly, a shaky, dusty sigh, the sharp, metallic tang of fear still lingering in your mouth. This small, hard-won victory, this fingertip's worth of cotton, holds more immediate value in this moment than your own aching bones, your numbing fear, or the terrifying proximity to the machine's cold, unfeeling hunger. It's a chilling realization, this constant exchange of your life for a thread. The air, you can taste it, can't you? Not just smell it, but actually taste the oppressive atmosphere that clings to every surface, every breath you take in this vast, deafening cavern. It's a bitter, metallic tang, underscored by the cloying sweetness of raw cotton fibers and the pervasive, greasy scent of hot oil that seems to seep from the very walls. It's thick, this air, so heavy with fine, insidious dust that it feels like breathing through a dirty shroud. Each inhalation is an effort, a constant battle against the choking sensation at the back of your throat. It begins subtly, the tickle that makes you cough, a dry, rasping bark that gets lost in the thunderous clamor of the looms. But as the hours grind on, that tickle transforms into a persistent, burning ache in your lungs, a raw, desperate need for a single, clean gulp of air that simply doesn't exist here. Your eyes, already weary from the constant watch on the spinning threads, now sting and water from the irritation, blurring the already dim, dust-mottled light. You blink hard, trying to clear the grimy film that seems to coat your vision, but it's a futile effort. The dust is inescapable. It settles on your hair, your clothes, even on your tongue, leaving a gritty residue that no amount of swallowing can dislodge. You watch as other children, their faces streaked with grime and sweat, cough in unison, a silent, pathetic chorus swallowed by the roar. Their shoulders hunch, their small chests heave with the effort of simply breathing. It's a shared burden, this poisoned air, an invisible enemy that works tirelessly, insidiously from within. You can feel its constant presence, a tightness in your chest that never quite eases, a shallow, desperate rhythm to your breathing that is entirely unnatural for someone so young. Your thirst is perpetual, a dry, aching emptiness that even the warm, metallic-tasting water from the communal pail does little to quench. This isn't just working in a room, it's existing inside a slow, constant erosion. The machinery grinds away at the cotton, yes, but this air, this unseen enemy, feels like it's grinding away at you too. Every shallow breath is a concession, a small sacrifice to the demands of the mill, an exchange of your vital essence for another hour of relentless toil. You are not just mending threads, you are breathing in the very particles of the industry, becoming irrevocably a part of its dark, suffocating process, a living filter for its ceaseless output. The air here isn't something you simply breathe, it's something that slowly, relentlessly reshapes you from the inside out. The air around you isn't just dusty anymore, it's become a tangible presence, a thick, gritty substance that lines your throat and lungs, feeling less like air and more like a coarse, inescapable part of you. Each breath is shallow, an anxious intake, as if your chest is perpetually constrained by an invisible tightening band. The cough, which began as an intermittent annoyance, is now a deep, rattling expulsion, a persistent, involuntary spasm that racks your small frame, tearing at your already raw throat. It echoes dully in the deafening clangor of the machinery, a constant, pathetic counterpoint to the relentless grind of profit. You can taste it now distinctively, not just dust and oil, but a metallic, almost coppery flavor that seems to originate deep within your own body, a stark reminder of the foreign matter accumulating inside. You press a hand instinctively against your sternum, a futile gesture against the deep-seated ache that has settled there, a dull, constant throb that never quite eases. Your fingers, raw and nimble as they dart amongst the whirring spindles, feel detached from the rest of you, carrying out their automated tasks while your body struggles with its fundamental need to simply breathe asterisk. You watch a bobbin, freshly filled with pristine, tightly wound cotton, spinning rapidly on its axis. It's clean, pure, the very essence of what this entire cacophony exists to produce. Then you cough again, a wet, rasping sound, and feel the gritty, fibrous particles that rise in your throat. The contrast is chilling. This is the truth of the mill, isn't it? The air that chokes you, the very dust that settles in your lungs, is a direct byproduct of the wealth being spun on those bobbins. Your very lifeblood, your breath, is being exchanged, slowly and painfully, for another man's profit. The foreman strides past, his heavy boots making no discernible sound amidst the din, his face impassive, his eyes scanning the machinery, never lingering on the weary, grey faces of the children. He doesn't see your struggle, doesn't hear the ragged cadence of your breath. He sees only the turning spindles, the unbroken threads, the steady output. You understand with a bitter clarity that your labour, your very suffering, is a necessary ingredient in this industrial crucible. You are literally inhaling the raw material of their success, a living, breathing part of the mill's relentless engine, turning your youth, your health, into another lungful of profit. And the insidious process, unseen, relentless, grinds on, day after suffocating day. The mill's roar isn't just sound, it's a conductor, an unseen maestro orchestrating a relentless, deafening ballet around you. Every clang, every hiss, every guttural grind of iron feels like a percussive beat, a commanding rhythm that seizes hold of your body, dictating your movements. You feel it in the soles of your feet vibrating up through your legs, a deep, pervasive tremor that settles in your chest and makes your very bones hum. Your head aches, a constant, dull throb behind your eyes, but your hands, your arms, your entire weary frame have learned to move in perfect, involuntary synchronicity with this mechanical orchestra. You're a threader now, assigned to the towering warping machine. It's a behemoth of polished steel and thousands of delicate, tightly stretched threads, all destined to become the warp of the next great bolt of cloth. Your task is to guide each individual thread from its creaking spool through a tiny, precise eyelet, your fingers dancing with an almost impossible speed and dexterity. Up and down you move along the long, narrow aisle, your small body a shadow against the gleaming metal, your movements mirroring the ceaseless, rhythmic sway of the machine's components. It's a dance, yes, but one without joy, without grace, driven solely by the unfeeling imperative of production. Each step, each reach, each precise movement of your numb fingers is a pre-programmed motion in this vast, industrial performance. The air, thick with the smell of warm oil and the cloying sweetness of raw cotton, moves with the machine, creating subtle, dangerous currents. You see other children, small, stooped figures in this metal jungle, performing their own intricate, repetitive routines at identical stations. Their hands blur with the same practiced, terrifying precision, their gaze is fixed, vacant, yet intensely focused on the task at hand. There's a shared, unspoken understanding in their eyes, a grim recognition of the silent, dangerous choreography they're all forced to perform. No one speaks, the roar consumes all whispers, all cries. Only the sharp, decisive clatter of a rethreaded loom breaks the monotony, a brief, triumphant note in this overwhelming symphony. Your body aches with a deep, persistent weariness, every joint protesting the unnatural, repetitive strain. Yet you continue to move, pulled along by the machine's relentless, hypnotic rhythm. The deafening clamor, far from numbing you, sharpens your senses to the movements of the machinery, to the whir of a loose belt, the shudder of a struggling gear, the snap of a breaking thread. It's a constant, terrifying awareness, an intricate ballet where one misstep, one moment of distraction could lead to disaster. You are not just working, you are a living extension of the mill itself, a compelled performer in its endless, brutal and utterly silent play, consumed by the relentless, demanding tempo of profit. Your life, a fragile, fleeting gesture, swallowed by the unceasing dance of iron and cotton. The deafening roar of the mill has long since ceased to be just noise. It's a living, breathing entity that swallows all other sound, pressing in on your eardrums, vibrating through the very marrow of your bones. Your world is a constant, grinding tremor, a ceaseless, brutal symphony of iron, steam, and whipping leather belts. The air, thick with cotton dust and the greasy tang of hot oil, seems to stifle any attempt at speech, any whisper or cry. It's as if the mill itself has decreed a profound, unyielding silence, forcing communication to retreat deep within, to exist only in glances, in movements, in the subtle, desperate language of the body. You're back at your spinning frame, your small hands raw and nimble darting in and out, mending the endless succession of snapped threads. Your eyes, gritty and burning from the fine, insidious dust, scan the rapidly whirring spindles with an almost obsessive focus, anticipating the next break, the next interruption in the relentless flow of production. Your shoulders ache, a dull, persistent throb, and your neck feels stiff, perpetually strained from hours of bending and stretching. Every muscle in your body screams its protest, but you ignore it, pushing through the pain, through the dizzying monotony. There is no other choice. Across the narrow, oil-slicked aisle, through the shimmering haze of dust and the dizzying blur of machinery, you catch a fleeting glimpse of another child, a girl perhaps a year or two younger than yourself. She's at her own frame, her slight frame trembling with visible exhaustion, her movements becoming less precise, a little slower, more hesitant. A thread snaps and she fumbles, her fingers clumsy with fatigue, barely catching the broken end before it disappears into the hungry mechanism. Her head drops for a fraction of a second, a small, defeated slump of her shoulders, almost imperceptible in the chaos. The foreman is nowhere in sight, his heavy thudding footsteps temporarily absent from your immediate vicinity. For a moment, just a tiny, precious sliver of time, her eyes lift, meeting yours across the deafening expanse. In that brief, shared glance you see it all, the raw exhaustion, the fear of making a mistake, the relentless pressure. You see a mirrored reflection of your own arduous struggle. Without a word, without a sound that could ever hope to penetrate the overwhelming din, you give a single, almost imperceptible nod of your head. It's a tiny, weary movement, barely more than a twitch. But in this place, in this crushing silence imposed by the ceaseless roar, it speaks volumes. It's a gesture of grim understanding, a silent acknowledgement of shared endurance, a fleeting, fragile connection forged in the heart of an indifferent, devouring machine. In that nod, you both find a momentary, unspoken strength, a defiant spark of humanity within the dehumanizing rhythm of the mill. The brief cessation of the mill's thunderous roar, a sudden, almost disorienting hush, is your only signal. It's not silence, not truly. The massive engines sigh and groan into a lower rumble, the frantic whirring slows to a heavy hum, but the difference is profound. It's the closest thing to peace you'll experience all day, a precious, fleeting moment when the crushing noise loosens its grip. And with that, your stomach, a hollow, aching void for hours, responds with a sharp, insistent clench. You realize with a painful jolt just how deep the hunger has burrowed, how completely you had suppressed it beneath the overwhelming sensory assault of the mill. You push your way through the suddenly jostling crowd of children and adults, all moving with a desperate, unified purpose towards the communal eating area, a grim, cavernous space that offers little respite. The air here is marginally less dusty, but it's thick with the collective scent of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and the faint, almost painful aroma of meager food. You find your usual spot, a cold, hard bench tucked against a grimy wall, and carefully, almost reverently pull out your meal. It's the same as yesterday, the same as every day, a small, dry piece of oatcake wrapped in a scrap of old cloth. The texture is immediately familiar on your tongue, coarse, crumbly, and stubbornly bland. You chew slowly, deliberately trying to prolong the sensation, to extract every last morsel of substance. There's no joy in it, no pleasure, only a desperate primal act of survival. Your mouth feels dry, gritty from the ever-present cotton dust, making the already dry oatcake even harder to swallow. You take a sip from your small, dented tin cup, the lukewarm water tasting faintly of rust, but it helps to wash down the fibrous meal. You watch the other children around you, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow, devouring their own meager portions with a similar silent intensity. Each bite is a silent prayer against the gnawing emptiness, a desperate attempt to fortify bodies that are constantly, relentlessly being depleted. The brief quiet is already starting to fray, pierced by the shouts of the overseers, urging everyone to finish, to return to their stations. The low rumble of the engines is already beginning to pick up, a rising crescendo that signals the end of your precious, short reprieve. You quickly finish the last crumbs of your oatcake, savoring the faint, starchy taste that lingers on your tongue. It's not enough, you know, not nearly enough to fuel the endless hours of labor ahead, but it's something. A small, dry, defiant act of replenishment in the face of an insatiable hunger, both bodily and of the mill itself. Another small measure of sustenance to buy another few hours of endurance. The fleeting comfort of that dry oatcake, already vanished, swallowed by the mill's ravenous demands. You feel it again, a hollow, ceaseless gnawing deep in your stomach, an emptiness mocking the very idea of having eaten. Though you ate, your body cries for more, for fuel it won't receive. The faint, metallic taste of oats dissipates, replaced by gritty cotton dust and the dry ache of thirst. Your movements at the spinning frame, usually quick, begin to slow, feel heavier. Each mended thread now demands exhausting effort. A faint dizziness flickers, blurring the whirring bobbins, and you clench your jaw, forcing focus. Your hands, raw, tremble, darting into the machine's dangerous embrace. The brutal roar amplifies this internal hollowness, making hunger feel profound, suffocating. You glance across the aisle through hazy, dust-laden air. Another child, pale and drawn, small body slumped against the frame, their gaze vacant, fixed. You recognize the same hollow, unyielding hunger mirrored there. Thin hand rests on cold metal, almost translucent. Shared, unspoken starvation is common. The mill doesn't care for hunger, it cares only for thread. The mill drains your last strength. Every whir, clang, shudder pulls sustenance, turning you into fuel. You are not just working. You are being consumed by the hunger that defines this existence. It's a hunger not just for food, you realize, but for rest, for warmth, for a world where your belly might feel truly full. But here, in this roaring heart of industry, hunger is a shadow, refusing to ever truly leave. The rhythmic clatter and hiss of the mill, that ceaseless, thunderous roar that has become the very soundtrack of your existence, suddenly seems to shift, to subtly intensify. It's not a change in the machinery itself, but rather a change in your perception, a tightening of the knot of dread that has found a permanent home in your gut. You feel a prickling sensation on the back of your neck, a familiar, unwelcome premonition that makes the fine hairs stand on end, even through the constant coating of cotton dust. It's the sensation of being watched, an invisible pressure that pins you to your spinning frame, even amidst the swirling chaos of the factory floor. Then you hear it, even through the deafening din. The distinct, heavy thud of boots on the oil-slicked floorboards, a sound somehow sharper, more deliberate than the endless shuffle of other workers. Each resounding step reverberates not just through the wooden floor, but through your very bones, sending a jolt of anxiety through your weary frame. You don't need to look up to know who it is. It's the foreman, his presence a dark, imposing shadow even before he fully enters your peripheral vision. His arrival always brings with it a palpable tension, a tightening in the air, as if the mill itself holds its breath in his imposing wake. You hunch lower over your work, your small, nimble fingers, raw and chafed, darting with frantic speed between the whirring bobbins, mending the constantly snapping threads. Your eyes, gritty and burning from the pervasive dust, strain to focus to maintain the relentless pace demanded of you. You can feel his approach, a looming shadow that casts a sudden momentary gloom over your small, oil-stained patch of floor. The overwhelming scent of the mill, hot metal, acrid oil, and cloying cotton is suddenly pierced by a sharper, less welcome smell, the stale tobacco and sweat that clings to his heavy woolen coat. Your breath hitches in your throat, a dry, dusty gasp that's instantly swallowed by the roar. Then the thudding stops, a sudden, jarring cessation that feels louder than any noise. You don't dare to lift your gaze, keeping your eyes fixed on the dizzying blur of the spinning cotton, but you feel his presence right beside you. The air grows heavier, charged with unspoken expectation. A sharp, stinging sensation shoots through your arm as a large, heavy hand clamps down on your shoulder. It's not a comforting touch, there's no warmth in it, no reassurance. Instead, it's a grip of pure, unyielding authority, the pressure digging into the bone, a harsh, wordless reminder of who holds power here, who controls your every waking moment. You flinch involuntarily, your small muscles tensing under the unexpected weight, but you don't break rhythm. You can't. His fingers are thick, calloused, rough against the thin fabric of your shirt, the pressure unwavering, a silent, forceful command to work harder, faster, to show no weakness. You can almost feel his gaze burning into the top of your head, a silent interrogation of your productivity. You can't hear his voice above the clamor, but you understand the message perfectly: push harder. The heat from his hand sears through your skin, leaving a phantom ache even after he finally, abruptly releases his grip. The sudden absence of his weight is almost as startling as its arrival, leaving behind a cold, empty spot on your shoulder, a chilling reminder of his proximity and his absolute control. You resume your frantic mending, your heart hammering against your ribs, a small, terrified drum lost in the mill's deafening symphony. In this world, a single touch can speak volumes, can carve deeper than any spoken word, reminding you of the harsh, unyielding power that dictates every breath you take. It's a touch that strips away choice, leaving only the cold, hard imperative of survival. The ache is a low, persistent throb, a deep bruise settling under your left shoulder where the foreman's heavy hand clamped down. It's not a sharp, immediate pain, but a dull, insistent pressure, a constant reminder nestled beneath the thin, rough fabric of your smock. Every time you stretch to mend a high thread, every time you reach across the spinning frame, a fresh wave of discomfort radiates from the spot, a silent protest from your aggrieved flesh. It's hidden, this injury, tucked away from prying eyes, yet it feels as loud and insistent as the mill's ceaseless roar within the confines of your own body. The air around you, thick with cotton dust and the metallic tang of hot oil, seems to exacerbate the feeling, each shallow breath amplifying the tightness in your chest. You try to shift your weight to find a position that offers even a fleeting moment of relief, but there is none. The relentless pace of the machinery demands constant motion, an unending ballet of reaching, bending, and stretching. Your fingers, raw and chafed, continue their dance amongst the whirring bobbins, but a part of your attention is now irrevocably pulled inwards, monitoring the hidden discomfort, the tender spot that feels like a heavy weight pressing against your very soul. You catch a fleeting glimpse of your reflection in a grease-stained windowpane, a hazy, distorted figure, small and weary, entirely swallowed by the towering machinery. Your face, streaked with grime, tells no tale of the secret pain you carry. It's an invisible burden, one of many, adding to the ceaseless fatigue that already pulls at your limbs, blurs your vision, and dulls your senses. You are just another small cog in this monstrous machine, and visible weakness is a luxury you cannot afford. The bruise, therefore, becomes a private companion, a secret testament to the harsh realities of this life. Later, in a brief moment when the foreman's heavy boots are far down the aisle, you furtively rub the spot with your opposite hand, pressing against the dull ache, feeling the tender lump of flesh beneath the cloth. It's a small, almost unconscious gesture, a fleeting attempt at self-comfort, a brief acknowledgement of the quiet agony you endure. The touch is both painful and strangely grounding, a tangible proof of your own weary existence amidst the mechanical chaos. This bruise, you realize, isn't just skin deep. It's a mark, another imprint of the mill's relentless demands, a silent testament to the battles waged daily, hidden beneath the surface, against a world that cares little for the pain of those who toil within its deafening embrace. You carry it, along with so much else, as a silent badge of survival. The mill's roar, a constant physical assault, has long blurred into a background hum in your weary mind. But then, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift occurs, a fleeting anomaly in the familiar chaos. Amidst the relentless clangor and the hiss of steam, you catch a distinct high-pitched whine, a sound unlike the usual mechanical groans, sharper, more insistent, almost like a distant, trapped cry. It's quickly swallowed by the general din, but it leaves an unsettling echo in the cavernous space between your ears, a tremor of unease that prickles at the back of your neck. Your eyes, gritty and burning from the ever-present cotton dust, are fixed on the spinning frame, your small hands flying automatically to mend yet another broken thread. The bobbins blur, the threads a dizzying beige river. But as your gaze sweeps across the polished steel and dark, greasy mechanisms, something else flickers in your peripheral vision. A shadow, perhaps, or a trick of the dim, dust-mottled light filtering from the high windows. But this shadow moves. Not with the rhythmic sway of the machine, nor with the hurried dash of another worker. It's an independent, fleeting movement, a dark, indistinct shape that seems to coil and writhe within the very heart of the whirring gears. Your breath catches in your throat, a dry, dusty gasp. You blink hard, rubbing at your eyes with the back of your hand, convinced it's merely exhaustion playing cruel tricks. The image vanishes, replaced by the relentless, unyielding motion of the machinery, but the unsettling feeling lingers, a cold, hard knot tightening in your stomach. You force yourself to focus, to calm the frantic hammering of your heart, to dismiss it as the hallucination of a mind pushed to its very limits. Yet a moment later, as your head turns, you see it again. A fleeting impression of something, a shimmer, a darker patch, deep within the complex lattice of the machine's inner workings. It's gone almost as soon as you perceive it, a ghost within the iron, a momentary ripple in the fabric of the mill's brutal reality. There's no logical explanation, no mechanical part that could account for such a strange, ephemeral presence. The heat from the engines seems to press in on you, the smell of hot oil and singed cotton suddenly more oppressive, more suffocating. You feel a chill, an irrational fear that isn't born of cold, but of the unsettling possibility that something unseen, something unnatural, truly stirs within the unfeeling heart of this industrial monster. And for a terrifying moment, the roar of the mill sounds less like industry, and more like a monstrous, living thing, breathing, watching, and concealing its secrets within its deafening embrace. The line between what is real and what your weary mind perceives blurs entirely. The mill's relentless, deafening roar is your constant companion, a chaotic symphony that has long blurred into the background of your consciousness. But then, a distinct, jarring discord slices through the din. The rhythmic clack-clack-clack of the spinning frame directly opposite you, where a young boy no older than your sister, usually toiled, abruptly, chillingly ceases. A stark, terrifying silence where before there was frantic, mechanical life. Your own fingers, raw and nimble, instinctively falter, hovering uselessly over a broken thread. Your eyes, gritty and burning, snap upwards, pulled by the sudden, profound vacuum of sound. Through the shimmering, dust-laden air you see it. The space where the boy should be, his small, stooped form is simply gone. The frame still whirs and grinds, bobbins turning, but his station is empty. A single small patched boot lies abandoned on the oil-slicked floor, too large for the fragile foot that once wore it, resting beside a dark, unsettling stain. A cold dread, a sickening lurch twists in your stomach. Other children, their faces pale and streaked with grime, have also noticed. Their eyes, wide with unspoken horror, meet yours across the deafening expanse, a silent, terrible communication. No one dares speak. The mill's roar seems to gain a new, more sinister edge, as if it has consumed something precious and now growls in satisfaction. Then the foreman, he's a blur of dark wool and furious motion, his heavy boots pounding across the floor, silencing any lingering tremors of apprehension. He doesn't glance at the stain, barely a flicker at the abandoned boot. His gaze sweeps across the terrified faces, a chilling, silent threat. With a curt, savage gesture, he points to the vacant frame, then to a new, smaller, trembling figure already being pushed forward. The boy, eyes wide with terror, takes the place of the one who just vanished. The machinery grinds on, relentless, uncaring. In that terrifying void, where a child used to be, another appears, as if nothing has truly changed. The mill cares only for its ceaseless turning, indifferent to the human cost of its insatiable hunger. The abrupt cessation of the mill's thunderous roar isn't just a change in sound, it's a profound, disorienting absence that leaves a hollow echo ringing in your ears. For 12 brutal hours, the ceaseless clangor has been a physical force, pressing in, vibrating through your bones, a constant, aggressive soundtrack to your very existence. Now in its sudden quiet, a new sound emerges, the low, collective sigh of hundreds of weary bodies, the shuffle of tired feet dragging across oil-slicked floorboards, and the persistent, hacking coughs that have been swallowed by the machinery's din all day. The air, though still thick with cotton dust, and the metallic tang of hot oil, feels suddenly colder, sharper, as if the warmth of the roaring engines had kept a deeper chill at bay. You join the sluggish serpentine queue, a silent procession of stooped figures, each face etched with the same exhaustion, the same vacant, resolute weariness. The line inches forward, agonizingly slow, towards a small, grimy window set into a thick brick wall. This is the pay window, a portal to a fleeting, meager reward. You can feel the cold radiating from the damp stone as you lean against it, your bruised shoulder protesting with a dull throb. The smell of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and the pervasive mill dust hangs heavy in the air, a collective testament to a day's hard labor. Finally, you reach the front. A large, shadow-clad hand, its fingers thick and stained, appears briefly from the dark aperture, depositing a single small, heavy disc of cold metal into your outstretched palm. It's a shilling, just one, for 12 hours of ceaseless, dangerous toil, for a lungful of dust, for every ache and every shiver, for the constant fear of the machine's hungry maw. The coin feels shockingly cold against your raw, grubby skin, a stark, tangible representation of your entire day's worth, a paltry sum for a piece of your very life. You quickly clench your fingers around it, securing it deep within your calloused hand, the fear of losing it far greater than any momentary satisfaction its possession might bring. The weight of the shilling in your hand is immense, not just in its metallic density, but in the crushing burden of what it represents. It's a promise barely of another meal, another day's survival, a temporary reprieve from the gnawing hunger that never truly leaves you. It's the bitter taste of a life meticulously measured in pennies, a stark, undeniable truth that your time, your youthful strength, your very existence, can be bought and sold for such a small, cold coin. You clutch it tighter, the sharp edges digging into your palm, a constant physical reminder of the precarious balance between sustenance and the soul-crushing sacrifice required to obtain it. This single shilling, you realize, isn't just money, it's the fragile anchor to another day, another cycle in the unfeeling heart of the mill. You clutch the single shilling tightly in your raw, bruised hand, its cold, metallic weight a sharp, almost painful contrast to the desperate emptiness in your gut. But the journey isn't over. Your weary feet, accustomed to the rhythmic thud of the mill, now carry you through the grimy, gas-lit streets, past rows of identical soot-blackened terraced houses, towards the looming presence of the company store. It stands as another monolithic extension of the mill itself, its single, grimy window barely illuminating a sparse, uninviting interior. The air here carries a different, yet equally oppressive scent. Stale flour, cheap lamp oil, a faint, almost sickly sweetness of old sugar, all mingling with the ever-present stench of industrial grime. You step inside, the heavy wooden door creaking shut behind you with a dismal thud, momentarily muffling the distant echoes of the mill. The light inside is dim, cast by a solitary gas lamp that flickers weakly, barely chasing away the pervasive gloom. Shelves, sparsely stocked with basic provisions, sacks of coarse flour, hard biscuits, small portions of questionable meat line the walls, all priced conspicuously high. Everything here belongs to the mill, sold back to its workers at a profit that feels like another layer of the unending exploitation. Your stomach rumbles, a painful, insistent reminder of the hunger that has gnawed at you all day, making the meager goods on display seem both tantalizing and impossibly distant. You approach the counter, a thick, scarred slab of wood. Behind it stands the storekeeper, a lean, watchful man whose eyes, sharp and calculating, rarely meet yours directly. He doesn't offer a greeting, merely a curt nod, his gaze already anticipating your purchase. You reluctantly unclench your fingers, presenting the hard-won shilling. The act of handing it over feels like a physical severance, as if you're surrendering a piece of yourself, a portion of your very flesh and blood, back to the same entity that took it from you in the first place. You point to a small loaf of bread, dense and pale, and a tiny measure of tea leaves. The cost is instantly tallied, a swift, merciless subtraction. The storekeeper's gnarled finger, stained with ink, consults a heavy, leather-bound ledger, its pages filled with neat, incriminating rows of names and figures. He makes a fresh entry, a scratch of his quill that echoes louder than any shouted command in the sudden, eerie quiet. You watch powerless as your name is meticulously recorded alongside the meager goods you've purchased and the small remaining fraction of your shilling or perhaps the new debt you've accumulated. The transaction is swift, impersonal, and utterly devoid of warmth. You clutch your scant purchases, the bread hard beneath your fingers, and turn to leave. As you step back into the biting cold of the evening, the shilling is gone. It was never truly yours, you realize. It was merely a token, a fleeting illusion of payment that the mill through its store has swiftly reclaimed. The weight of the ledger, that silent, damning record of your endless struggle, feels heavier than any coin you might hold. You are bound inextricably to this cycle, where your labor produces profit, only for that profit to be immediately siphoned back, leaving you perpetually, painfully in its thrall. It's a cruel accounting, a life measured not by worth, but by a balance that perpetually hovers at the edge of despair, ensuring you remain forever tethered to the iron heart of the mills. The moment you step through the creaking, warped door of the tenement, a suffocating wave of scent hits you, far more potent and distinct than the mill's mechanical stink. It's a dense, inescapable aroma, a blend of stale cooking fat, damp plaster, unwashed bodies, and something vaguely metallic, like old blood mixed with mildew. Each hallway you navigate is a new layer of this oppressive perfume, thick and clinging, permeating your clothes, your hair, even the very memory of your lungs. It's the smell of 100 cramped lives pressed too close together, the scent of inescapable poverty, a perpetual dampness that seeps into your bones and clings to your very soul. The air, heavy and still, offers no respite from the biting evening chill. You shiver, a deep, involuntary tremor that racks your already weary frame, and the cold, unyielding stone of the narrow stairwell seems to pull the last vestiges of warmth from your numb fingers as you instinctively brush against the grimy wall for support. The darkness is almost absolute, broken only by the occasional flickering gas lamp on a distant landing, casting long, unsettling shadows that dance with every creak and groan of the ancient building. Each worn step under your heavy, dragging boots feels precarious, echoing faintly in the suffocating quiet, a stark contrast to the mill's ceaseless roar. Here, silence feels less like peace and more like a heavy blanket, muffling the desperate cries of life. As you ascend, slowly, painfully, each flight of stairs a monumental effort for your aching muscles, you pass by countless doors, each a thin barrier to another family's cramped existence. You hear the faint murmurs of voices, the sharp cry of a fretful baby, the dull clang of a pot, all filtered through paper-thin walls, weaving into a tapestry of muted, shared struggle. The faint, sweet scent of a burning oil lamp, the bitter tang of cheap tobacco, the faint, cloying sweetness of rot, each nuance adds to the tenement's complex, overwhelming olfactory signature. It's a smell that tells a story, a dark, poignant tale of endurance and resignation. You reach your own door, its paint peeling, the wood scarred with countless scuffs. The handle, cold and pitted beneath your touch, feels like an ancient, familiar friend. The tenement isn't just a building, you realize, it's a living entity breathing its own unique, desperate breath. It's an overwhelming sensory experience, a constant reminder of the thin line between survival and destitution. This isn't just a place to sleep, it's a crucible where lives are forged in the harsh reality of their surroundings, a world defined by the smells that cling to you long after you've left its oppressive embrace. It's the smell of home, however grim, however utterly overwhelming. The heavy, warped door groans shut behind you, not quite sealing, but enough to plunge you into a deeper, more profound darkness. The air, thick with the tenement's pervasive scent of damp, grime, and unwashed bodies, suddenly feels heavier, utterly stagnant. It's a suffocating blanket pressing in, and you instinctively reach out, your raw fingers brushing cold, rough plaster. This is your home, your refuge, yet it offers no breath of fresh air, no glimpse of the sky, no window. That's the chilling, undeniable characteristic of this tiny room, a cruel design ensuring no direct sunlight ever penetrates, no cool evening breeze ever stirs the stale air. The perpetual gloom is absolute, broken only by the faint, sputtering glow of a solitary oil lamp. Its weak flame casts long, dancing shadows, making the cramped space feel even smaller, more oppressive. The meager light barely distinguishes the shapes of your straw mattress, your sister's small cot, and the few meager possessions scattered across the damp earthen floor. You hear your sister's soft, even breathing from her cot, a fragile, innocent sound, both comfort and sorrow. She's deep in sleep, lost to the grim day, her small form barely a rise under the threadbare blanket. You move carefully, each weary step a deliberate action, navigating the familiar darkness. The air is cold, a deeper, stagnant cold, trapped and suffocating, clinging to the damp walls and seeping into your very clothes, chilling you to the bone. You sink onto your own mattress, its straw rustling dryly beneath you. The silence here is broken only by the faint, distant rumble of the mill, a low, guttural growl that penetrates even these thick walls, a constant, insidious reminder of the monstrous world that demands your waking hours. This room, this small, airless box, offers fragile protection from the elements, but it steals something else: the light, the expansive sky, the very sense of open possibility. It's a cage, a damp, dark box that holds you until the rattle at the windowpane, a window that isn't even truly here, calls you back to the outside, to the larger, equally oppressive prison of the mill. This profound absence of a window, you realize, isn't just physical deprivation. It's a chilling metaphor for a life lived entirely without light, without hope, without escape. The cold, dull throb in your shoulder is a constant companion, a physical memory of the foreman's heavy hand, nestled beneath the thin, rough fabric of your smock. But for a fleeting moment, a rare, unexpected reprieve, you find yourself outside the mill's suffocating embrace. You've been sent to fetch water from the communal pump in the grimy, cobbled courtyard, a brief respite from the relentless roar that still vibrates faintly through the very ground beneath your worn boots. The air here, though still tainted with the distant tang of coal smoke and industrial waste, feels almost miraculously thinner, sharper, carrying a subtle, unfamiliar coolness that stings your nostrils. You pump the cold, metallic-tasting water into your dented pail. The creak and groan of the rusty handle a mercifully human sound after hours of mechanical clamor. Your fingers, raw and chafed, ache with the effort, but the sheer novelty of being out in the open, even for a moment, pushes the pain to the periphery. You take a deep, shuddering breath, filling your lungs with something that isn't solely cotton dust and hot oil, and for a fleeting instant, a lightness almost forgotten brushes against your weary spirit. Then you look up, and there it is. Above the towering, soot-blackened walls of the mill and the grimy rooftops of the surrounding tenements, a vast, improbable expanse of sky. It's not the bright, unblemished blue of a summer's day, no. This is a muted, bruised canvas, streaked with delicate hues of grey and pale rose, the lingering ghosts of dawn mingling with the approaching, heavier shades of afternoon. Wisps of smoke from countless chimneys curl lazily across its surface like slow, tired dragons, but they cannot entirely obscure its immense, breathtaking scale. For a moment, just a precious, stolen sliver of time, you simply stare, your head tilted back, your mouth slightly agape. The sheer, overwhelming enormity of it makes your small, tired world shrink even further, yet simultaneously, it offers an astonishing sense of release. It's so impossibly vast, so utterly indifferent to the grinding mechanisms below, to the despair and drudgery that defines your every waking hour. You feel a strange, hollow ache in your chest, a longing for something you cannot name, a sense of wonder that feels both beautiful and desperately painful. It's a glimpse of a world beyond the mill, beyond the tenement, a silent, powerful reminder that there is something else, something immeasurably grander, above the relentless churn of your existence. And then, the clang of a distant bell, sharp and unforgiving, pulls you back, yanking you down from the dizzying height of the sky, back to the cold, hard ground, and the inevitable return to the shadows. But for that brief moment, you remembered what it felt like to look up. The absence of the mill's thunderous roar on a Sunday morning isn't silence, not truly. Instead, it's a profound, disorienting quiet, a heavy blanket that smothers the usual cacophony, leaving behind a hollow echo in your ears. You wake not to the frantic rattle at the window, but to the dull ache in your shoulder, the constant throb in your weary feet, and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. Your body, accustomed to the brutal rhythm of the machines, protests this unaccustomed stillness with its own symphony of pains. You stay in bed, a small luxury for a few precious moments longer, the lumpy straw mattress feeling marginally less hostile beneath your aching back. The threadbare blanket, still damp with the room's perpetual chill, offers little comfort against the cold that permeates everything. Outside, the distant, muffled peal of church bells drifts through the tenement walls, a solemn, unfamiliar sound that speaks of another world entirely, one of respite and gentle observance. You hear the faint, higher-pitched sounds of children playing in the alley below, their laughter thin and reedy, a stark contrast to the mechanical shrieks of the mill. The air in your cramped, windowless room, usually thick with the stale scent of industrial grime, now carries a different, more intimate blend. Old cooking fat, damp plaster, and the faint, bitter tang of cheap tea. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that sends a fresh wave of stiffness through your protesting muscles, a stark reminder of the week's relentless toil. This rest, you realize, is not a true rejuvenation. It's merely a pause, a fragile reprieve. Your mind, though free from the immediate demands of the spinning frame, still feels trapped by the invisible threads of exhaustion and anxiety. You rise eventually, pulling on your rough, worn clothes. The day stretches before you, an expanse of muted activities, perhaps a trip to the market, a brief, silent visit to a relative. But underneath it all, a deep, pervasive melancholia lingers. This Sunday, this precious, fleeting breath is an illusion, isn't it? A brief, fragile interlude before the inevitable Monday, when the mill's monstrous roar will once again swallow all peace, all hope, all of you. You are given a day to mend, but never truly to heal, forever tethered to the clockwork demands of a world that offers only the illusion of escape. That incessant cough, the one that started as a tickle, a minor irritation, has now burrowed deep into your chest, a rasping, persistent guest that never truly leaves. It erupts in dry, painful spasms that rack your small frame, tearing at your throat and making your lungs burn. Each fit leaves you breathless, gasping for air that feels impossibly thin, impossibly distant, even in the stagnant, dusty gloom of the tenement room. The taste of it, that bitter, metallic tang mixed with the gritty residue of cotton, lingers on your tongue, a constant, sickening reminder of the mill's pervasive, insidious touch. Even now, away from the roaring machinery, you feel a crushing weight on your chest, a tightness that makes every breath a conscious, painful effort. It's as if your lungs, once capable of deep, full inhalations, are slowly, irrevocably filling with something heavy, something that refuses to be expelled. Your skin, usually a pallid grey from the perpetual grime and lack of sun, now has an unnatural, almost translucent quality, a sickly white that makes the blue veins on your temples stand out in stark relief. The mirror in the communal hallway, when you dare to glance, reflects eyes that seem sunken, shadowed, holding a weariness far beyond your years. You watch your younger sister, curled on her straw mattress, her small face pale even in the dim lamplight. She too coughs in her sleep, a softer, younger echo of your own struggle, a sound that pierces your heart with a cold, desperate fear. You know this affliction, this white sickness, as some of the older workers whisper without needing its name. You've seen it in the faces of countless others in the mill, a slow, inevitable progression. The persistent cough, the struggle for breath, the gradual fading of color, the way their bodies seem to shrink, consumed from within. It's a silent, insidious thief stealing breath, stealing life, one painful gasp at a time. Each day, as you force yourself out into the cold, grimy dawn, you feel its grip tighten a little more. The simple act of walking to the mill becomes a labor, your legs heavy, your lungs protesting with every step. You tell yourself it's just tiredness, just the cold, but deep down a colder, harder truth settles. This isn't merely fatigue. This is the body's slow, painful capitulation, a grim testament to the air you're forced to breathe, the invisible price paid for every thread spun, every bobbin filled. Your own breath, once a given, now feels like a dwindling resource, a precious commodity slowly being choked out by the very industry that demands your life. It's the silent, deadly whisper of the mill, taking root inside you, one dusty lungful at a time. The cough is a constant, raw companion now, a deep, rasping sound that feels like it's tearing at your very insides. It erupts without warning, a violent spasm that leaves you breathless, doubled over, your small body racked with the effort. Each fit brings with it a metallic taste, a gritty expulsion that coats your tongue, a grim reminder of the insidious cotton dust that has burrowed deep into your lungs. Even the mill's relentless roar, which usually swallows all other sounds, seems to pause for a fraction of a second, unable to entirely obliterate this desperate biological protest. You try to suppress it, to force it back down, especially when the foreman's looming shadow passes your spinning frame. You clench your jaw, pressing your fist against your chest, trying to somehow muffle the sound, to hide the undeniable evidence of your failing health. But it's a futile effort. The cough insists, a violent expulsion that leaves you panting, your vision swimming, the world around you blurring into a dizzying haze of whirring bobbins and fast-moving machinery. The air, thick with hot oil and cotton fibers, feels like lead in your lungs, exacerbating the agony, making each shallow breath a conscious battle. The constant effort of breathing, the perpetual fight against the tightness in your chest, saps your energy more completely than the endless hours of mending threads. Your limbs feel heavy, sluggish, responding slowly to the demands of your work. Your fingers, once quick and precise, now fumble occasionally, the threads snapping more often, each break a small, stinging defeat. You wipe a smear of oily grime from your forehead, and your hand comes away clammy with sweat despite the underlying chill that seems to permeate your bones. You glance at the other children around you, their faces pale, their eyes sunken. Many of them cough too, a silent, pathetic chorus that seems to punctuate the mechanical roar. It's a shared fate, a collective burden, the white sickness slowly, inexorably, tightening its grip on all of you. You know with a chilling certainty that this cough isn't going to stop. Not here, not in this place where the very air you breathe is slowly consuming you. It's a cough that marks you, a sound that speaks of a life being slowly, painfully extinguished by the relentless demands of the mill. And in its persistent, rasping rhythm, you hear the grim, undeniable truth of your own dwindling time, measured out in desperate, dust-choked breaths. The biting cold of the evening bites at your exposed skin, a stark contrast to the oppressive, greasy heat of the mill you've just escaped. Your weary feet, accustomed to the rhythmic drone of the machinery, now drag across the uneven cobbles of a narrow ginnel, a dark, winding alleyway that cuts between the towering, soot-blackened buildings. The air here is thick with the pervasive stench of damp stone, stagnant water, and decaying refuse, a sickening mix that makes your stomach clench. But tonight, there's something else, something sharper, carried on the damp breeze. A faint metallic tang, almost like stale blood. The darkness is absolute, a suffocating blanket broken only by the occasional fleeting flicker of a distant gas lamp at the mouth of the alley, casting long, unsettling shadows that dance with every gust of wind. The rough stone walls of the ginnel loom high above you, pressing in, creating a claustrophobic tunnel that seems to swallow all sound. Yet, even through the dull ache in your chest and the ceaseless rasp of your own cough, you hear it. Not the familiar clatter of a passing cart, nor the distant clamour of the city, but something softer, more insidious. Whispers, faint, hushed murmurs barely audible above the scuttle of unseen rats and the drip of moisture from overflowing gutters. They seem to weave in and out of the oppressive darkness, disembodied like ghosts clinging to the damp stones. You quicken your pace, your heart beginning to pound a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat of sudden, unexplained fear. This ginnel, usually just a shortcut home, now feels charged with a chilling, unsettling energy. Then you see it. Tucked into a deeper recess of the alley, a group of figures huddled together, their forms barely discernible against the blackness. They are speaking in low, urgent tones, their voices never rising above a fervent whisper. You can't make out words, not clearly, but the hushed intensity, the furtive glances exchanged, the sudden stiffening of their shoulders as a faint light briefly illuminates them, it all speaks of secrecy, of hidden things. One of them, a gaunt man whose face is deeply shadowed, seems to gesture towards the mill, its dark, hulking silhouette visible at the ginnel's distant end. The air grows colder, a prickling chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. You understand instinctively that you have stumbled upon something not meant for your ears, a secret woven into the very fabric of this grim, suffocating city. And as you hurry past, trying to blend into the shadows, the metallic tang in the air seems to sharpen, deepening your unease, leaving you with a chilling premonition that these whispers carry a far heavier weight than any mere gossip. The chilling metallic tang of the ginnel air still clings to your nostrils, a phantom scent of something sharp and unsettling, long after you've stumbled back through the creaking door of your tenement room. The whispers, those furtive, urgent murmurs from the shadows, refuse to fade, instead echoing persistently in the cavernous space between your ears, intertwining with the memory of the mill's roar and the sudden, terrifying silence that fell over a spinning frame. You collapse onto your straw mattress, the rough fibers rustling dryly beneath your weary frame, but sleep for now feels impossibly distant, chased away by a burgeoning, icy dread. You close your eyes, but the darkness behind your eyelids is not restful. Instead, it's filled with unsettling images. The empty space where the boy once stood, the solitary, oversized boot abandoned on the oil-slicked floor, and that dark, unsettling stain you tried, but failed to ignore. The foreman's face, an impassive mask, flashes in your mind, followed by the image of the terrified new boy, pushed into place as if nothing had happened, as if human lives were merely interchangeable cogs in the monstrous machinery. You feel a sudden violent cough rack your chest, a dry, painful spasm that leaves your lungs burning, a bitter taste rising in your throat, and in that moment the white sickness feels less like an illness and more like a slow, deliberate poisoning, an act of consumption by the very place that demands your labor. Your mind, though weary, begins to turn, piecing together fragments, chasing connections. The whispers you overheard in the ginnel, low, urgent, hushed, had spoken of trouble, of disappearances, of loose tongues. You try to recall the exact cadence, the specific gestures. One of the figures, a gaunt man, had pointed towards the mill, always the mill. You remember the unsettling shimmer you thought you saw within the machinery, that ghost in the machine from days ago, dismissed as exhaustion. Now it returns with a chilling clarity, less a hallucination and more a grim premonition. Was that the boy? Was he consumed? The thought is too horrifying, too impossible, yet it lodges itself in your mind, cold and sharp as a splinter of glass. The air in the windowless room is stagnant, thick with the tenement's pervasive smell of damp grime and unwashed bodies, but you taste only the metallic tang of fear, feel only the rapid, erratic beat of your own heart. Your younger sister stirs on her cot, letting out a soft, innocent sigh, and a fierce, desperate protectiveness surges through you, momentarily eclipsing your own terror. You want to shield her, to keep her small and oblivious to the dark undercurrents that ripple through this brutal city, this suffocating factory world. But you know with a terrible certainty that she too is marked by the mill, by the air, by the grinding fate that awaits all children in its merciless grip. The logic of the mill is cruel, relentless, and horrifyingly simple. Bodies are expendable, there are always more, always another child, another small, desperate hand to fill the vacant space, to feed the hungry maw of production. The disappearance of one boy is merely a blip, a momentary interruption quickly smoothed over, quickly forgotten, buried beneath the relentless roar and the endless churn of cotton. But you saw, you heard, you asterisk are piecing together the silent, unspoken horror that binds you all, that links the whispers in the dark ginnels to the vacant space at the spinning frame. The secrets of the mill are not just in its iron heart, you realize. They are in the silences, in the desperate glances, in the hushed fears that cling to the very air you breathe. And knowing them, you feel, might be the most dangerous thing of all. You are no longer just a worker, you are a witness, burdened by a truth too terrible to speak and too dangerous to ignore. The rhythmic clatter and hiss of the mill's machinery might be an inescapable fact of your waking hours, but even that overwhelming sound can't entirely drown out the subtle, unsettling creak beneath your feet. You're back at your spinning frame, your small hands flying automatically to mend the endless snapped threads, but a new, persistent awareness has taken root in your mind. It's the floorboards here just next to your station. They're old, of course, worn smooth in patches by countless weary feet, but here some are splintered, uneven, and they groan with a particular, almost deliberate resonance whenever you shift your weight. Your bare feet, toughened by years of exposure, feel the subtle give in the wood, a slight spring that suggests hollowness beneath. The pervasive smell of hot oil and cotton dust that saturates the air is suddenly joined by a faint, earthy dampness rising from the gaps, a scent that speaks of forgotten darkness and hidden spaces. You find your gaze drawn repeatedly to the patterns of grime on the floor, the dark streaks of oil that seem to converge on a particular section of planks, almost as if drawing your eye to them. You're mending a thread, your fingers deft and quick, but your mind is elsewhere, pulled by an unshakable curiosity. You remember the whispers in the ginnel, the cold dread of the empty spinning frame, the fear for your sister. Could there be a connection? Could these worn, grimy floorboards hold a secret? You lean down, pretending to inspect a dropped bobbin, and run your fingers along a particularly wide crack between two planks. The wood feels rough, aged, its edges sharp with splinters, but there's a distinct looseness to one section, a subtle wobble that feels entirely out of place. It's almost as if it's meant to be moved. The mill's roar continues its relentless symphony around you, a perfect cloak for any small, furtive movements. The foreman, a hulking shadow, is far down the aisle, his attention fixed on another worker. This is your chance, a fleeting moment of stolen opportunity. You press down cautiously with the ball of your foot, feeling the plank yield, dipping slightly before springing back. It's a silent invitation, a subtle defiance against the mill's oppressive, all-consuming order. The wooden floor, a solid, immutable part of your world, now seems to whisper of hidden depths, of secrets buried just out of sight, just beneath the surface of this brutal, unchanging reality. And you can't shake the feeling that whatever lies beneath, it's connected to the chilling disappearance that haunts your every waking moment. The loose floorboard next to your spinning frame calls to you, a silent, insistent whisper beneath the mill's deafening roar. The foreman is occupied elsewhere, his back turned, his heavy boots far down the aisle. This is your chance. You feign dropping a spool, crouching low, your small, numb fingers scrabbling at the edge of the splintered plank. It yields more easily than you expected, lifting slightly. A gust of cold, foul-smelling air wafts up, carrying a sickening mix of damp earth, decay, and something else, a sharp, unmistakable metallic tang that makes your stomach clench. You peer into the narrow gap, the darkness absolute, deeper even than your windowless room. The mill's powerful vibration shudders through the floor, threatening to dislodge your precarious grip. Your eyes, accustomed to the dim light, strain to penetrate the abyss, and then you see it, tucked amongst the dust and grime, a small dark bundle, not just cotton but something stained, a familiar unsettling color, crimson. It's a scrap of fabric, cheap and coarse, caked with dried mud and unmistakably blood. Your breath hitches, a dry, dusty gasp. This isn't imagination, this isn't fatigue, this is real. The connection to the boy, to the empty frame, to that dark stain on the floor screams silently in your mind. This scrap, this brutal evidence, is chillingly small, almost insignificant, yet its presence here beneath the very floor you stand on is a truth too terrible to bear. It's a piece of something living, brutally consumed by the hungry, unfeeling beast of the mill. The roaring machinery around you suddenly feels more monstrous, its iron heart beating a relentless rhythm of sacrifice and profit, absorbing not just fiber but flesh and blood too. You quickly, furtively press the plank back into place, your heart hammering, leaving the grim secret hidden, for now, beneath the splintered wood, forever tainted by the blood in the cotton. The mill has truly swallowed a child. The foreman's heavy hand, a constant nagging memory in your bruised shoulder, is momentarily forgotten, overshadowed by a new, more immediate terror. It starts as a distant rumble, deeper than the mill's usual thunder, a heavy, grinding sound that grows rapidly, vibrating through the very ground beneath your oil-slicked feet. It's a sound of immense weight, of polished wood and gleaming metal, utterly out of place in the cacophony of the factory floor. The air, already thick with cotton dust and hot oil, seems to thicken further, charged with a sudden, anxious tension that ripples through the rows of workers. You don't need to look up, but you do, you can't help yourself. Your gaze, gritty and burning from the constant irritation, sweeps towards the main aisle, a wider thoroughfare that separates the towering machinery. And there it is, a sudden, opulent flash of dark, gleaming wood and polished brass, drawn by two magnificent, powerful horses whose hooves clatter with a sharp, imperious rhythm on the cobbled stones. It's the owner's carriage, of course. His arrival is always heralded by this distinct, intrusive clamour, a stark, jarring intrusion of wealth and power into your grim, industrial world. The carriage rolls slowly, majestically down the aisle, its massive wheels churning past your spinning frame with an almost disdainful ease. The heavy axles groan, a deep, resonant sound that seems to mock the lighter, frantic whirring of the mill's own gears. You catch a brief glimpse of the interior, plush and dark, a stark contrast to the dust-choked, greasy air of the factory floor. Through the polished glass, a shadowed figure sits, still and imposing, a faint, almost indifferent silhouette. He doesn't look at you, doesn't acknowledge the children, the workers, who stand frozen in his presence. His gaze is fixed straight ahead, as if seeing only the endless potential for profit rather than the human cost. A wave of fear, cold and sharp, washes over you. You hunch instinctively lower over your work, your small fingers flying with renewed, desperate speed, mending threads with a frantic intensity. The raw, open wound of the boy's disappearance, the bloody scrap of fabric hidden beneath the floorboards, suddenly feels more exposed, more vulnerable than ever. His presence, the owner's silent, powerful gaze, feels like a direct threat, a chilling reminder of the absolute, unquestionable authority that dictates every aspect of your life here. The carriage passes, its thundering wheels shaking the very foundations of the mill, leaving in its wake a lingering scent of expensive leather and polished wood, an alien perfume that feels utterly out of place, utterly grotesque. And in the wake of those powerful, relentless wheels, you feel a profound, chilling sense of insignificance, of utter powerlessness, a small, disposable cog in a vast, unfeeling machine, silently crushed beneath the weight of indifference and unimaginable wealth. The lingering scent of rich leather and expensive, unfamiliar perfume from the owner's vanished carriage still hangs in the thick, oily air of the mill, an alien fragrance clinging stubbornly amidst the pervasive stench of hot metal, stale cotton, and human sweat. It's a phantom presence, a ghost of another world that has briefly brushed against yours, leaving behind a jarring dissonance. The mill's relentless roar, which minutes before seemed to recede into a subservient hum at the approach of wealth, now crashes back into full, deafening force, as if eager to erase the momentary intrusion, to reclaim its absolute dominion over all sound and sensation. Your fingers, raw and nimble, dart automatically to mend a snapped thread, but your mind is no longer entirely tethered to the monotonous task. The image of that opulent carriage, its gleaming wood and powerful horses, rolls relentlessly through your thoughts, a stark, almost violent contrast to the splintered floorboards beneath your feet, the threadbare clothes on your back, and the meager, dry oatcake that barely stills the hunger in your gut. You recall the shadowed figure within, still and imposing, utterly untouched by the grime and clamour that defines your every waking moment. It's as if he exists on a different plane, moving through the very same space, yet entirely separate, entirely immune. You cast your gaze across the factory floor, now seeing it through a new, sharper lens. The other children, their faces pale and streaked with grime, their shoulders permanently stooped, continue their ceaseless labour, their small bodies seemingly swallowed by the towering machinery. Their movements, once merely an ingrained rhythm, now appear as a desperate dance, a frantic struggle against the invisible currents of exhaustion and disease that buffet them from all sides. You remember the young boy who vanished, the bloody scrap beneath the floorboards, a chilling reminder of the mill's insatiable hunger, a truth that the owner's carriage, by its very presence, seems to dismiss as utterly irrelevant. The heat generated by the engines presses down on you, the pervasive cotton dust prickles at your throat, and a familiar, painful cough racks your chest, bringing with it that bitter, metallic taste. This is your reality. This dense, suffocating air, this ceaseless clangor, this endless, back-breaking toil. And then there is his reality, a world of crisp, clean air, of hushed silence, of fine food and soft beds, driven into existence by the very cogs you help to turn, by the very cotton you breathe. Two worlds, you realize, coexisting in the very same city, separated by an invisible chasm wider than any ocean, yet bound inextricably by the threads you spin. He passes through the mill as a shadow, a fleeting, powerful presence, observing without seeing, consuming without tasting. And you, a small, weary figure, are left with the indelible impression of that carriage, its thundering wheels not just rolling across the cobbles, but crushing with silent indifference the countless lives that fuel its journey. The profound chasm between these two existences, the unimaginable distance between his world of opulent comfort and your world of relentless, grinding despair, is a truth that settles heavy in your heart, a bitter knowledge that burns more fiercely than any lungful of cotton dust. You are both in this city, yes, but you inhabit entirely different universes, forever separated by the invisible, unyielding wall of power and privilege. The mill's ceaseless roar, that brutal, familiar symphony of clanking iron and hissing steam, suddenly seems to falter, to lose its relentless rhythm. It's subtle, a momentary hesitation in the overwhelming din, but it's enough to prickle your senses, to send a shiver of unease down your spine. Then a new sound cuts through the cacophony, utterly out of place, a crisp, distinct rapping, a polite yet firm knocking echoing from the direction of the main office. It's an unusual sound for the mill, one that carries with it an unexpected chill, a ripple of apprehension that spreads quickly through the rows of workers. You don't need to see the foreman, but you feel his sudden presence. He appears as a blur of dark wool and furious motion, moving with an unprecedented urgency towards the source of the sound. His face, usually a mask of grim authority, is now creased with a frantic, almost panicked energy, his eyes darting across the factory floor, a silent command for everyone to appear busy, to work faster. He barks an unheard order, his mouth moving in quick, sharp gestures, but the words are swallowed by the machines. Yet the message is clear, understood by every hunched shoulder, every quickly lowered gaze. Pretend. The air, thick with cotton dust and the greasy tang of hot oil, suddenly feels even heavier, charged with unspoken tension. You watch furtively as older children, perhaps a year or two above the legal working age, are hastily ushered forward, their places taken by even younger, smaller figures who seem to shrink further into the shadows. The boy who sits at the spinning frame opposite you, the one who replaced the vanished child, seems to whittle himself down to nothing, his small frame almost disappearing behind the churning machinery, his terror palpable even across the noisy aisle. You too bend lower over your work, your small raw fingers flying with desperate speed, mending threads with an almost feverish intensity. The knocking persists, a steady, measured rhythm, each rap a stark contrast to the mill's brutal, unceasing pulse. You catch a glimpse of a figure, tall and formally dressed, standing briefly in the main doorway, his face indistinct, his presence a stark, alien intrusion into your grim world. This must be the factory inspector, a mythical figure rarely seen, whose visits are both dreaded and ironically, at times, a cause for fleeting, desperate hope. His arrival brings with it a frantic, deceptive dance, a momentary disruption to the mill's oppressive order. But you know with a bitter certainty that this visit, this brief, polite intrusion will change nothing. The grime will remain, the dust will settle, the machines will continue their hungry roar, and the children will continue to vanish. It's a performance, a fleeting charade for an outsider who will never truly see beyond the carefully constructed illusion. And as the inspector's shadow passes and the mill's clamour returns to its full, deafening pitch, you feel a profound, crushing sense of resignation. The illusion of scrutiny, you realize, is just another cog in the vast, unfeeling machine, allowing the grinding gears of exploitation to turn, uninterrupted, for another day. The foreman's shadow, usually a beacon of grim authority, flits past your spinning frame with an unnerving agitation. The mill's roar continues its relentless symphony, but now it's overlaid with a peculiar undercurrent of suppressed tension, a collective anxiety that makes the air feel thick and heavy. You glimpse the factory inspector, a tall, impeccably dressed figure, his face unreadable, his polished boots a stark contrast to the oil-slicked floor. He's walking slowly, meticulously down the aisle, the foreman hovering at his elbow, a picture of full civility. Your fingers, raw and chafed, continue their dance amongst the whirring bobbins, but your attention is entirely consumed by the unfolding charade. You see the children around you, their faces pale and streaked with grime, their movements a little too frantic, a little too exaggerated, a desperate performance for the watchful eye of the outsider. The younger ones, those even smaller than yourself, have been strategically hidden, either tucked beneath machines or, in some cases, spirited away entirely through a discreet back exit, their absence a silent, damning testament to the well-rehearsed lie. The inspector stops at a nearby spinning frame, where a girl, perhaps a year or two older than you, works with a feigned intensity. He leans in, his voice a muffled murmur that is utterly swallowed by the machinery's din, but you see her nod, her eyes wide and unnervingly bright. She offers a small, practiced smile, a fragile mask of innocence, and gestures towards the swiftly spinning cotton. You know the lie she tells, that she's older than she is, that her hours are few, that her work is not arduous. It's a performance honed by fear, a script dictated by survival, recited flawlessly for the benefit of the passing official. The foreman, a heavy hand resting casually on the girl's shoulder, watches the exchange with an almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw, his gaze a silent threat, ensuring the performance remains impeccable. You feel a prickle of cold sweat on your brow, a fresh wave of fear mingling with the familiar metallic tang of cotton dust. The inspector moves on, seemingly satisfied, his polite, indifferent nod a final confirmation that the deception has succeeded. He never questions the deeper silence, the hollow eyes, the incessant coughs swallowed by the roar. As he exits and the foreman's shoulders visibly relax, the tension on the factory floor dissipates, leaving behind a lingering taste of bitter resignation. The frantic movements of the children settle back into their customary, weary rhythm. The younger ones begin to creep back from their hiding places, their small faces etched with a profound relief. The well-rehearsed lie, you realize, is not just a momentary deception for an outsider. It's the very foundation of this brutal world, a collective falsehood that keeps the gears turning, that justifies the exploitation, that allows the unseen horrors to continue day in and day out in the deafening heart of the mill. And in its wake, the truth of the blood beneath the floorboards, the vanished boy, and the slow, insidious sickness remains buried, unseen, and utterly unaddressed. The relentless clatter and hiss of the mill, that deafening symphony, has been your world for hours. But then, for a stolen moment as the foreman's back is turned, your small, raw fingers instinctively slide into the deep, inner pocket of your threadbare smock. They close around something smooth and cool, a tiny island of unexpected sensation amidst the rough cotton dust and oily grime that coats everything else. It's a small, crudely carved wooden bird no bigger than your thumb, its wings painstakingly etched, its shape worn smooth by countless anxious touches. The feel of the splinter-free wood against your chafed skin is a fleeting comfort, a gentle protest against the constant, abrasive touch of the cotton fibers and the rough fabric of your work clothes. You pull it out just for a second, keeping it hidden in the palm of your hand, a secret offering to your exhausted eyes. The bird's polished surface, a faint pale brown, stands out starkly against the dark, greasy smears on your skin, a tiny, almost luminous point in the dim, dust-mottled light of the factory floor. It's a piece of something living, of nature, incongruously small and delicate against the towering, grinding machinery that surrounds you. You watch as your other hand, automatically, mechanically, mends a broken thread, its movements precise and tireless, entirely detached from the quiet tenderness you hold. The constant rumble and clangor of the looms, usually a suffocating blanket, now seems to recede slightly, creating a small, imaginary bubble around this tiny wooden secret. It's a moment of profound, almost defiant stillness. This little bird, carved from a discarded scrap of wood found in the grimy alley behind the tenements, is your only link to a world beyond iron and cotton. It's a fragment of childhood, a whisper of innocence kept hidden, cherished. It reminds you of the sky you sometimes glimpse, of the wild birds that sing beyond the city's industrial choke. In this brief, stolen glance, holding this small, silent bird, you reclaim a fraction of yourself, a fragile piece of hope against the overwhelming, consuming reality of the mill. It's a defiance, small and unseen, a desperate attempt to hold onto a tiny, beautiful truth in a world determined to grind it all away. The mill's roar, that relentless, deafening symphony, assaults your ears, a constant, brutal pressure that never quite recedes. Your small hands, raw and chafed, move with automated precision, mending the endless succession of snapped threads on the spinning frame. But even amidst the blinding blur of cotton and steel, a tiny rebellion takes place. Your right thumb, with a movement almost too subtle to notice, pushes against the smooth, cool wood of the makeshift bird tucked deep within your smock pocket. It's a silent, secret motion, a quiet defiance against the clamor that seeks to consume your every thought. The foreman is a dark, looming shadow at the far end of the aisle, his heavy boots thudding faintly even through the all-encompassing din. You risk it just for a second. Your thumb and forefinger subtly manipulate the small wooden bird, making its crudely carved wings flutter, a silent, imagined flight. You feel the faint, dry rustle of the fabric against its polished surface, a sensory whisper of freedom. For that fleeting instant, your mind, starved of anything but thread and oil, conjures an image. The bird soaring high above the soot-stained roofs, above the towering chimneys, above the suffocating shroud of coal smoke that perpetually chokes the city's sky. You imagine the feeling of wind beneath its tiny wings, a lightness, a joyous, effortless movement utterly alien to your own weary, aching body. The cool wood against your skin, the imagined flight, offers a minuscule sliver of respite, a precious, stolen second of childhood amidst the greasy heat and pervasive cotton dust. It's a fragile, almost desperate act of play, a hidden spark of imagination stubbornly refusing to be extinguished. You feel a faint, almost forgotten lightness in your chest, a ghost of a smile touching the corner of your grim-streaked mouth, quickly suppressed. This small, silent interaction with the toy is a profound contrast to the relentless, unfeeling churn of the machinery, a testament to an inner world that the mill cannot, will not conquer entirely. But the moment is fleeting. A sudden, sharp glance from an older worker, a quick flicker of their eyes in your direction, snaps you back to the brutal reality. The foreman's heavy tread is nearing. With a swift, almost imperceptible movement, the small wooden bird is secured deeper within your pocket, its imagined flight abruptly halted. Your raw fingers return to the relentless task of mending threads, their movements once again precise and tireless, but a faint, lingering echo of that stolen second of freedom remains. This small, furtive act, you realize, is not just about a toy. It's about desperately clutching onto the vanishing fragments of your own youth, a silent refusal to let the mill, with its ceaseless, raw and insatiable hunger, entirely consume the child within. It's a moment of private, precious rebellion, a desperate breath drawn against a suffocating world. The rhythmic clatter and hiss of the mill, that ceaseless, thunderous roar, has settled back into its oppressive, familiar rhythm after the brief, unsettling disruption of the inspector's visit. But something has shifted inside you. The well-rehearsed lie, the forced performance, the casual indifference of the owner, it all feels like a thin veil now, barely concealing a deeper, more monstrous truth. The wooden bird, a tiny, cherished secret, feels heavier in your pocket, a tangible counterweight to the growing dread in your heart. Your gaze, usually fixed with such intensity on the rapidly spinning bobbins, keeps straying to the loose floorboard next to your station. It's a silent, insistent draw, a constant reminder of the bloody scrap hidden beneath, a chilling testament to the vanished boy. The vibrant, deafening chaos of the mill seems to distort, to focus into a single terrifying truth, that this place, this monstrous engine of industry, consumes not just cotton but lives. And it does so with utter impunity, protected by a network of lies and indifference. You mend a thread, your raw fingers automatically tying the knot, but the delicate strand feels strangely fragile in your grasp. It's a literal thread, yes, but also a metaphor for the thin, precarious line you walk every single day. The threads, you realize, aren't just breaking on the spinning frame, they're unraveling everywhere. The threads of truth, the threads of justice, the very fabric of innocent lives. The casual cruelty of the foreman, the forced smiles of the older children, the terror in the eyes of the new boy, it all weaves into a tapestry of complicity and fear, a shroud that covers the dark secrets of the mill. A sudden, violent cough racks your chest, leaving you breathless, your lungs burning with that familiar, bitter taste of cotton dust and something metallic. You press a hand against your sternum, a futile gesture against the deep-seated ache. The white sickness feels less like an illness now and more like a slow, deliberate act of murder, a consequence of the very system that churns out wealth. The mill, you understand, is not just a place of work. It's a site of quiet violence, a place where innocence is sacrificed on the altar of profit, where children simply disappear, swallowed by the raw. The weight of this knowledge, the grim certainty of what you know, settles on your chest, heavier than any physical ache. It's a burden, a chilling awareness that demands action, yet offers no path, no voice in this deafening world. You are a small, insignificant figure in a vast, unfeeling machine, yet you carry a truth that no inspection, no owner's carriage can erase. The unraveling thread, you realize, isn't just about the cotton. It's about the very humanity that is being spun into nothingness day after day in this dark, unforgiving mill. And you, a silent witness, feel its pull, drawing you into a dangerous, inescapable truth. The mill's roar, that ceaseless, thunderous symphony, no longer sounds merely mechanical. Now every clang, every hiss, every guttural grind of iron feels predatory, imbued with a chilling sentience. It's a monstrous heartbeat reverberating through your very bones, a sound that has taken on a horrifying, undeniable meaning. The constant movement of the machinery around you, the dizzying blur of whirring bobbins and snapping threads, feels less like industry and more like the frantic, insatiable churning of a living, devouring beast. Your gaze, gritty and burning from the cotton dust, is drawn as if by an invisible thread to the churning belly of the spinning frame. You remember the glimpse of that ghost in the machine, the fleeting shadow you dismissed as fatigue. Now it haunts you with chilling clarity. You remember the loose floorboard, the cold rush of foul air, and the brutal, undeniable sight of that bloody scrap of fabric hidden beneath the surface. And suddenly, terrifyingly, it all fits. The empty space at the next frame, the hastily replaced child, the foreman's indifferent gaze, all pieces of a grotesque, unspoken puzzle. The terrible truth of the machine reveals itself, stark and brutal. It isn't just cotton it consumes, it's life. The whirring gears, the grinding rollers, the tearing belts, they are designed not just to process fiber, but to absorb, to erase any impediment to its ceaseless production. The boy didn't just disappear, he was consumed, ground into the very fabric of the mill, into the dust that coats your lungs, into the unseen, unacknowledged waste. The initial shock gives way to a cold, hard knot of dread that tightens in your stomach, a chilling certainty that makes the oily tang in the air taste of more than just industry. It tastes of blood, of fear, of silent horror. You understand now why the factory inspector saw nothing, why the owner's carriage rolled past with such disdainful ease. This horror, this industrial consumption of children, is not an accident. It's woven into the very design, a grim, unspoken efficiency. The mill is a living, breathing monster, its hunger insatiable, and children are its easiest, most disposable sustenance. Your raw fingers, usually so deft, tremble as they mend a broken thread, feeling the fragile fibers with a new, sickening awareness. You are not just a worker, you realize. You are another potential offering, another small life perpetually on the precipice of being swallowed whole. And in that terrifying, crushing knowledge, the relentless roar of the machine sounds less like progress and more like a monstrous, triumphant roar of consumption devouring innocence, one child at a time. The world, your world, is far, far darker than you ever dared to imagine. The air in your cramped, windowless room, thick with the familiar, suffocating scent of damp plaster, stale cooking, and unwashed bodies, has settled into its oppressive rhythm. Your small, aching body, still vibrating with the phantom roar of the mill, craves the elusive embrace of true rest, but your mind, burdened by the terrible truth of the machine, refuses to quiet. The image of the bloody scrap beneath the floorboards, the chilling certainty of the boy's fate gnaws at you, a relentless internal clamor that no amount of exhaustion can silence. You're slumped on your straw mattress, the rough fibers digging into your bruised back, the single oil lamp casting long, dancing shadows that make the cramped space feel even smaller. Your gaze, heavy-lidded and gritty with cotton dust, drifts idly towards the worn earthen floor, and there, caught in a sliver of faint lamplight, you see it, a small, crumpled scrap of paper, almost indistinguishable from the surrounding grime and discarded lint. It's an anomaly, a splash of stark white against the perpetual grey of your existence, pulling at your attention with an almost magnetic force. Slowly, carefully, as if approaching something delicate and dangerous, you reach out. Your raw, chafed fingers, accustomed to the abrasive feel of cotton and the cold, unyielding texture of iron, brush against the paper. It feels utterly alien, smooth, thin, yet surprisingly crisp, a stark contrast to the coarse fabrics and rough wood that make up your world. You unfold it gently, feeling the faint crackle of the aged material beneath your fingertips. The smell of it is faint but distinct, the clean, sharp tang of old ink, mingled with the musty scent of forgotten spaces, a fleeting whisper from another realm. The lamp's weak glow illuminates the fragment, revealing dense, neat rows of small, black print. It's a page torn from a newspaper, perhaps, or a pamphlet. The words themselves are largely a jumble, an indecipherable stream of letters and unfamiliar terms, but a few stand out larger, bolder, their shapes catching your eye. You recognize the name of the mill owner, Sir Alastair Finch, his name printed in bold, undeniable type. And further down, partially obscured by a fold, you decipher fragmented words like conditions, children, and investigation. A jolt, cold and sharp, shoots through you. Your heart, already weary, begins to hammer a frantic rhythm against your ribs. This isn't just a scrap of paper. This is a voice from the outside, a distant echo of the inspector's polite knock, yet far more potent, more persistent. It's the whisper of a world that questions, that dares to look beyond the carefully constructed lies of the mill. You trace a finger over the crisp black print, feeling the faint, raised texture of the ink. You imagine a hand, clean and steady, moving across a pristine page, the scratch of a pen, meticulously recording facts, detailing the very injustices you endure. It's an image so alien to your own grubby, toil-stained existence that it feels almost fantastical. But the words are real, the names undeniable. This small, fragile piece of paper, carried by unseen currents into your windowless room, now represents a flicker of something profoundly unsettling. It's hope, perhaps, or a terrible, dangerous confirmation that your grim reality is not entirely unseen, not entirely ignored. The idea that someone somewhere is writing about the conditions of children in the mills, that they are investigating, fills you with a dizzying mix of fear and a fragile, desperate curiosity. You clutch the paper tighter, feeling its sharp edges dig into your palm. This isn't cotton dust, this isn't a foreman's hand. This is the quiet, insistent power of a written word, a delicate, unseen force attempting to cut through the mill's deafening roar, a single, tiny spark threatening to illuminate the terrible truth. The crumpled scrap of paper, still clutched in your raw, trembling hand, feels like a fragile ember in the suffocating darkness of your windowless room. Its crispness, its clean scent of ink, stands in stark contrast to the ingrained grime and pervasive stench of the tenement. The lamp flickers weakly, casting dancing shadows, but your eyes, gritty and burning, are fixed on the bold black print, on the fragmented words that have burrowed deep into your weary mind. Conditions, children, investigation. The noise of the mill, though distant, seems to intensify in your memory, its ceaseless roar now a menacing accompaniment to the thoughts swirling in your head. You remember the vanished boy, the bloody scrap beneath the floorboards, the foreman's indifferent stare, the owner's opulent carriage. All these grim, disparate pieces of your world now for the first time feel connected, illuminated by this single, fragile piece of paper. The truth, the terrible, horrifying truth of the machine's insatiable hunger, the human cost, is no longer a silent, internal dread. It's a story, and someone out there is telling it. A cold, hard knot tightens in your stomach, a mix of fear and a strange, potent stir of something else. This isn't just news. It feels like a weapon, small and delicate, yet sharp enough to pierce the thick veil of secrecy and lies that shroud the mill. You imagine the words spreading, being read by others, carrying the grim reality of your days into drawing rooms and parliaments, places utterly unknown to you. The idea is dizzying, terrifying, yet intoxicating. You glance at your younger sister curled on her cot, her innocent breath a soft, rhythmic sigh, and a fierce, desperate protectiveness surges through you, solidifying a resolve you hadn't known you possessed. You carefully fold the paper, flattening it against your palm, feeling the faint crackle of its surface. This knowledge, this story, is a dangerous burden, you realize, but it is also power. It's a spark of defiance, a quiet, insistent rebellion against a world that seeks to silence and consume you. The mill's roar continues its endless demand, but for the first time, you feel a whisper of something that might be louder. A story, you understand, can be more than just words. It can be a force, an unstoppable current capable of carving pathways through the darkest, most unyielding stone. You tuck the paper away, a secret kept close, a new, dangerous weight in your pocket. You are no longer just a victim of the mill, you are a keeper of its most damning truth, and in that, a flicker of something far more potent than fear takes root. The mill's roar, that monstrous, ceaseless symphony of clanking iron, hissing steam, and whipping belts, is your entire world. It's a physical presence, vibrating through the very soles of your worn-out boots, pressing in on your eardrums until thought itself feels like a struggle. Your small, raw fingers work automatically at the spinning frame, mending threads with a precision born of endless repetition, but your mind, burdened by the secret of the newspaper scrap and the blood beneath the floorboards, churns with a frantic internal clamor of its own. Then it happens, a subtle yet utterly profound shift in the oppressive din, the rhythmic, aggressive clack-clack-clack of a power loom just a few yards from your station, the one where the new, terrified boy now works, abruptly falters. It hesitates, almost a gasp, before grinding to a complete, chilling halt with a final, shuddering clang. A silence, stark and terrifying, immediately blooms around that single, stopped machine, an impossible void in the heart of the mill's otherwise relentless roar. Your own hands, usually a blur of motion, freeze midair, a broken thread dangling uselessly between your numb fingers. Your gaze, gritty and burning, snaps upwards, pulled by the sheer, jarring absence of sound. Through the shimmering, dust-laden air you see it, the loom massive and inert, its intricate mechanisms utterly still. A thin wisp of steam still curls from a pipe, an incongruous sign of latent power, but the thrumming, vibrating life has gone. A cold dread, a sickening lurch twists in your gut. Other workers, their faces pale and streaked with grime, have also noticed. Their eyes, wide with unspoken horror, flicker towards the stopped loom, then quickly back to their own frantic work, a desperate, silent plea to remain unnoticed. The foreman, a blur of dark wool and furious motion, is already thudding across the aisle, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. His mouth moves in sharp, unheard commands, directed at the motionless boy by the silent machine. The sudden, brutal quiet of that stopped loom is more terrifying than any noise. It's a stark, undeniable punctuation mark in the mill's brutal rhythm, a glaring anomaly that screams of disruption, of malfunction, of a break in the relentless chain of production. But you know with a chilling certainty that it's more than just a machine at rest. It's a symbol, a brief, fragile moment when the mill's monstrous hunger pauses, a silent testament to the precariousness of life within its unfeeling embrace. The very air around you seems to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable consequences of this chilling, unexpected silence. And in that terrifying quiet, you feel the weight of your secret, the newspaper scrap, pressing against your heart, a dangerous, growing pulse against the monstrous, silent truth. The terrifying, impossible silence that bloomed around the stopped loom felt sharper, colder than any noise the mill could produce. For a moment, just a fractured sliver of time, the entire factory floor seemed to hold its breath, every grinding mechanism, every whipping belt, every hissing pipe, muted in the face of this unnatural cessation. Your own hands, raw and clumsy, hung uselessly over the broken thread, your heart hammering a frantic, desperate rhythm against your ribs. You watched, frozen as the foreman, a blur of dark wool and furious motion, reached the inert machine, his heavy boot kicking viciously at its base, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. He bellowed, a sound unheard above the mill's latent hum, gesticulating wildly at the new, terrified boy who stood trembling by the silent loom. Then, with a sudden, jarring jolt, the machine shuddered. A groan, a series of frantic clanks, and with a deafening roar it burst back to life, its rhythmic clack-clack-clack resuming with a renewed, almost vengeful intensity. The brief, chilling silence was brutally annihilated, swallowed whole by the mill's insatiable clamour. The air, thick with cotton dust and hot oil, seemed to press in on you with a renewed force, more oppressive, more suffocating than ever before. You squeezed your eyes shut for a fleeting instant, trying to clear the image of the trembling boy, the foreman's fury, the sudden, violent jolt of the restarting mechanism. But the image persisted, searing itself onto the inside of your eyelids, intertwining with the memory of the first boy, the one who had simply vanished. The empty frame, the abandoned boot, the chilling, bloody scrap beneath the floorboards, it all rushed back, a sickening wave of certainty. This wasn't an isolated incident, you realized. This was the mill's brutal, silent language, spoken through stopped looms and vanished children. The frantic, desperate movements of your raw fingers mending another thread felt hollow, meaningless, yet utterly necessary. The ache in your chest, a dull, persistent throb from the white sickness, now mingled with a cold, hard knot of dread. You were a survivor, yes, but what did that mean truly? It meant you carried the echoes, the chilling memories, the constant, pervasive fear. Every clang, every hiss, every groan of the machinery now spoke of the boy, of the mill's hunger, of the terrifying, unacknowledged truth. The silence of that stopped loom, though fleeting, had etched itself into your very soul, an indelible mark of the horrors you witnessed, the price of your own survival in this unfeeling, devouring world. And you knew, with a certainty colder than any winter's night, that its echo would haunt your waking hours, long after the mill's roar finally, mercifully ceased.